Hi guys, welcome to Art Talk with April, Season 3. I'm April Harris of Inked April, located in Birmingham, Alabama. We have some wonderfully inspiring artists on this season. Let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome to Art Talk with April. Today we have DaNeal Eberly in Montgomery, Alabama, and she is a figurative and abstract painter. Welcome so much, DaNeal. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about art.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun, right?
It's always fun.
How did you get started in art? Is this something that you've always enjoyed doing?
Yeah, I always enjoyed drawing ever since I was a little kid. So yeah, I think I've always enjoyed that.
And then I believe you said that you went to, was it the University of Texas, where you're originally from Texas?
Yeah, it was Texas Tech. I have a fine arts degree, but it was just an art education from Texas Tech.
Wow. Okay. Did you go into arts education?
I really didn't. No. I student taught, and I really enjoyed it. And then I married a military guy. So then, like, everywhere, if you move state to state, like every state's going to make you take different tests and do different credits and all that stuff. And I really, being a military spouse was, its whole own thing where like I felt like I should stay home and raise the kids and stuff because they're gone a lot. So I didn't really pursue teaching art. And honestly, I want to make art. I want to make art. I don't hate teaching art, but I love making art. So
yeah.
that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, eventually what happens, I felt like for me is I would teach and I felt like the creativity side of teaching kind of drained the energy that I was into making, because I feel like they kind of pull from the same side of your person,
Brain,
Yeah. And my day job is still a teaching job, but it's with preschoolers and it's not as demanding and it's just more like supervisory sort of like
yeah.
So I still spend time with kids and really love that, but it doesn't take from my ability to create.
So while you're going through all of that and you got married and you were doing the, military thing, then you moved to Alabama, and it looked like you are just like you have some work in Jackson Hospital and in different areas. I think you said that you're in Stonehenge and you had done some things in Huntsville and different places.
Yeah.
How did you go about getting into those spaces?
Yeah. So everywhere that I lived, I would try to find something akin to like an art guild, an art community. And so here I started the Pataga Art Guild is where I started meeting artists in this area. That was how I got into Jackson Hospital because they just had a thing. It was like an art night thing. And the lady who was curating that show, that collection that Jackson Hospital has, came through and saw the painting that was up and purchased it for the hospital. So that's how that happened. And then that same night, Stonehenge was at that same event. And so they saw that purchase and then they, contacted me and let me, join that gallery space. I don't do a lot of stuff with them anymore, but I still on occasion will do like their holiday shows and stuff. With Huntsville, so we have a Montgomery Art Guild here. And so I would also join the Montgomery Art Guild and we have a museum show every other year where you like submit and you can get your work in the museum, which is always awesome to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the museum wall, even if it's not part of their collection, it just feels really good. And so I was there and I got a drawing in one year there, and Cynthia Wagner from Huntsville had work in there, and it was like phenomenal. Like I was just fixated on her work. And she came up and I started talking to her. And then I found out about Lowe Mill and Huntsville and stuff from her. And I was like, well, how do you go about like getting into that? And she gave me information. She's really sweet and really kind of sharing. I think I emailed or messaged somebody, Robert DaNeal, who runs the galleries at Lowe Mill,
Mm-hmm.
had been following my work on Instagram for a while. And so he messaged me and offered me a show there. And I did a couple of the holiday shows there. Um,
Yeah.
so it's just been like, it's like just staying in contact with people and not being afraid to say, hey, like put yourself out there. Um,
Yeah.
it's always scary, because you could get rejected and it doesn't feel good, but like you don't make any of the shots you don't take, and
Yeah, that's
so I,
true.
I take shots if
Yeah.
it feels like the right time. And
I love what you pointed out there, because I hope that people listening to the podcast can find some inspiration and understand kind of how other artists are going about like their journey as an artist. And I mean, you see people like your work in the hospital, or you see this artwork in different spaces and you're like, how does that happen? You have beautiful, beautiful work, and I want to get into the making and everything. So, but you see your work in a hospital or museum show or something like that, and a lot of the younger artists are going to be like, okay, how do you get from point A to point B doing those types of things? And what you pointed out, I think is really all about networking
uh
and being brave enough to get out there and just ask questions.
right,
And
and like kind of forget about being cool and forget
yeah,
about and I've been doing this for a
mm,
lot of years, like, and I've done it all over the country. And there were years where, like, I mean, to be perfectly honest, my work was not at a level yet. Like, but I
yeah,
kept putting it out there, and there were lots of really painful years where I'd put my work out and there was no response because it wasn't really there yet. Like,
yeah,
I've been working consistently on my work for the last 30 something years. Like, I've been building this thing, and I think, um, but I think those first years where I kept putting stuff out and kept getting rejected was just as important
mm,
to keep pushing through and it could go one way or another. Like you could take rejection, go, well, I'm not good enough and quit. Or you can be like,
yeah,
I'm not good enough yet.
yeah,
And keep trying. And I'm more of the like, I wasn't good enough yet. And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing my work,
mm,
not just getting my work out there, pushing my work, like
yeah,
getting
yeah,
better, working all the time, taking classes, take figure drawing classes, like always wanting to be better. I always
yeah.
want to be better and learn more interesting than I was doing before. That's really important to me. Don't be afraid to adore another artist. Like,
Oh, yeah,
don't be afraid to like, I literally just adored her work. Like,
yeah,
and when I met her, I was like, "Yeah, you did this? Like, this is amazing." Like,
yeah,
I was blown away by her work. Don't be afraid to adore somebody else's work. Like, doesn't take anything away from you to adore
yeah.
work and to learn from somebody else's work. Like, I'm always poring over other artists' work. I love other artists' work.
Yeah, I think as artists, we find a lot of inspiration from other artists' work. And sometimes that it'll be like some small piece that our brain just kind of files away, and they're like, somehow the shape or the color or the lines or the texture or something may end up inspiring something that you experiment with and try.
Right.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, I do the same thing. Like on Instagram, it's really hard not to just like look at everybody's stuff because
Right.
it rather than being like comparing and getting down on myself, I enjoy it, and then I think, man, what is it about this artist's work that I am just crazy about?
Yeah. What did they do there? Like, how did they how did they hit that there? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, man,
yeah,
I'm just get curious.
yeah,
Curiosity, man. I think art is all about curiosity. It's about what would happen if I tried this? What would happen if I tried this way or this
yeah,
way? Like, it's all about curiosity and staying open.
yeah.
like, I have so many questions. I have way more questions than answers every day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that's part of it too, being an artist, staying curious is that thing that kind of drives you to keep going and experimenting and trying things and keeps it fresh where you're always, I don't know about you, I'll be like eating dinner or, out someplace and something will occur to me that
Mhm.
I need to try that, or I'm
Yeah,
out on a vacation or something. I'm like, wow, those colors is so, I need to remember that, to,
yeah, like that color combination or that like
yeah,
that technique or that like that little splash of like color in this other big like I've seen so many things where like they just stuck to me. I was like, wow, like that was like one tiny little move, like
yeah,
push that thing into something, a whole realm. Like it's just I don't know.
it's exciting.
I'm endlessly fascinated. Endlessly fascinated.
Yeah,
Like
that's awesome. So when you started out on your art journey, um, were you leaning towards like certain mediums and styles and things like that? Or has that progressed all along the way?
think that's progressed all along the way. And also,
Mm.
I was fortunate enough to get to go to school, so to
Yeah.
art school. So they introduce you to so many materials as you're getting going
Mm.
through classes. So like Prismacolors, that was from an art class. Um,
Yeah.
I didn't know I'd love Prismacolors. I love them, and I started out in watercolor. And as I was going through watercolor, my watercolor teacher was like, the way you
Mm.
work would actually probably be more suited to acrylic. And that was correct. It was.
Mm.
So I moved to acrylic. And then years down the road, somebody was like, hey, like, have you ever thought about oil? And I tried oil for a while and I didn't like it. So
Yeah.
I didn't like, I worked too fast. Like, I didn't have the patience. I think the material is beautiful. Like the medium is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I'm really bad about cleaning my brushes properly and all those kinds of things that like I feel like oil paint is for like really mature people. And
Yeah.
I'm not that person. I'm just not. That
I
ain't
always
me.
wondered about
And
that.
then
Like,
you have to be so mature to keep your brush clean and like to wait to put more color on till it's ready and
yeah.
stuff. I don't have that kind of impulse control. I don't
Yeah.
possess it. So I just leaned into my ADHD and just went, I go there. That's what I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
And I
where
think, that's so another thing that you said that is just really on point, I think, for me in particular, my experience, sometimes you lean towards a certain medium just because it works with your personality, what you can handle, like for a long time, I wouldn't paint because of the brushes and the cleanup and the mess and the stuff. I was more of a drawing, ink, pencil kind of person.
right.
And so it took for me getting older and then thinking, okay, let me try this now, because
Yeah,
maybe I can handle it. Maybe I can clean up after myself.
right. I'm the worst. I'm still the worst. But that's the thing about acrylic, you can leave your brushes in the water for a while. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing's gonna happen to them. Like so I don't have to be like super diligent at the end of every painting session, which time wise works for me because I have a day job and
Yeah.
I have things to do. I don't have time to sit and do all that stuff.
Now, were you always doing figurative or abstract or expressionism kind of stuff?
I feel like that's always been my desire. I feel like
Mm.
I've always wanted to paint people. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And that,
Like
yeah, I've done other
portraiture
stuff,
thing?
of course. Yeah, portraiture, faces, figures. I've always wanted to do people, and I've done other things, of course. I mean, I went to art school, so they make you do everything.
Yeah.
Done some landscapes, I've done some still lives, I've done all of the things. I just prefer the figure, and I always
Yeah.
wind up back there, even when I'm abstracting, and I'm like, I'm gonna go completely abstract. It always winds up figure always pops up in there. I'm like, just go with it. Like
Yeah.
the older I get, the less I fight my
Mm.
natural inclinations. Like I
Yeah.
think when I was young, I was always like trying to become something I'm not.
Mm.
And now that I'm older, I'm just trying to become what I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Accept it and love it and lean into it and not like balk at the way I naturally am. Just accept it
Sure,
in
sure.
a nice life. Like just go with who I am.
Oh, that is that is awesome advice too, I think, because I'm sure a lot of artists, especially people who have gone through art school, they know a lot of different kinds of art. They know a lot of different kinds of artists that they appreciate. And you're drawn to these artists, and then you sort of start to emulate them a little bit, but maybe it doesn't quite fit you, you know?
Right.
And you have to kind of let go of trying, like let's say you were fascinated by Dolly or something like that, and you were like, I want to be a surrealist
Mm-hmm.
and this is what I'm going to do. But as time goes on, you realize that you're not quite fitting into that box, right? And
Right.
so you have to explore other things. What happens with a lot of artists is we want to get to our goal right away. We want that instant, I'm here, I've arrived, I'm in the gallery, I'm selling, I'm doing the things. But sometimes it could take decades. I
Well, I
mean, like if
still
we're
have a day
honest,
job. I mean, hey, I still have a day job. I have to pay bills,
yeah,
and art
yeah,
does not pay my bills still. And I've been doing this most of my adult life, and I'm okay with that now. Like I used to take that really hard and think, well, maybe I'm just not good enough.
mhm,
I don't think that anymore, and I'm gonna do this with my life, no matter like financially what happens with it. It doesn't
mhm,
matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter in that it would never stop me because it's what I love to do the most. And so I'm
yeah,
always gonna, I make time for it because I love it. I want my life to be about the things I love. And I
yeah,
love making art. I love painting. I love drawing. I love looking at art. I love knowing artists. I just love art and all the things that go around it. So maybe I don't maybe love the financial world that surrounds it all the time because
yeah,
sometimes it does feel a little bit vulturous, but
yeah,
I do love I love the pursuit. Like it's a never ending, it's never gonna end. Like I'll never reach the end of the ideas.
yeah. The exploration of it all. It just,
Yeah, it's an
especially if you're curious,
yeah,
and you're trying things.
yeah. Don't lock yourself in. People are always
Mhm.
like, looks like your style is changing every few weeks. I was like, it probably is because
Yeah,
I found out there's something else I want to try. So like, I mean, one of the things they ask you to do is like make like a style. I'm like, I've made like there's too many things to try.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
mean, there is a certain freedom that comes in not paying your bills with it because like I don't have to make anything. And I think sometimes once it starts paying your bills, people
that
expect
stress.
they expect a certain thing out of you, a certain
Mhm.
painting that everybody liked. They want some variation of that painting everybody liked.
Yeah,
Um, but I don't do that because I I pay my bills other ways.
yeah. It does open up that freedom where you're able to kind of explore and do your own thing. And like you were saying, you when you were talking about networking and getting into different spaces and things, that you were, kind of reaching out to people when it suited you and you were able to, you knew, okay, I'm going to be able to work on this show, or I'm going to be able to have something ready
Right.
because it works for me, not
Right.
because I'm like, desperately needing to have enough money for
Right.
whatever, you
Right.
know.
And no disrespect to people who do that at all. Like,
Oh,
I mean, I respect that.
extremely brave.
That's brave. That's so brave. Like so brave. Like
Yeah,
I don't think
amazing.
I don't think I have the quite that level of confidence to like launch into that. I really like having that safety of my bills being paid. I really do.
Yeah.
And so I do daily, day jobs and I don't mind that.
Yeah, yeah, and being able, like you said, to be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's a huge lesson that some people, they're just not going to, maybe it's personality, or, you just want stability
Yeah.
there. And that's okay. It's not like,
It doesn't
you know,
make you less of an artist.
oh,
It does not.
it does not. And there's I
I just
want
want
to
to
say,
wrap my arms around so many young artists and be like,
yeah,
it's okay. It's like
it'll be all right.
this is not an easy life. It's
Yeah.
not, you know, you have to know deep inside of yourself that you love it so much that nothing's going to stop you from it. Like, because everything that could possibly come up to try and stop you, criticism, life, circumstances, illnesses, all the things that are can come in to stop you will come in. So you gotta love it.
Yeah, yeah. Life happens.
Yeah, you gotta love it enough to hold on.
Yeah. I want to say there was I follow so many different art accounts, but there was an article at one point where it was pointing out there are several like very well-known, respected artists. I want to say Gauguin was maybe one of them, but they had day jobs. They had regular jobs. They were like accountants or something, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And
that
we don't
happens. Yeah,
know. Like, I'm not saying Gauguin was an accountant, but we don't learn that in our art history. We
yeah,
learn about the paintings that he made, you know, and he's in museums or whatever. And
right.
so I mean,
But yeah, yeah,
it looks different ways for different people.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. You use acrylics, and are you using any other kind of techniques or surfaces and things like that in your work?
I usually do canvas and I love canvas paper. Like
Oh, yeah,
love the
yeah.
canvas paper. I feel like I can build real quick on it. Like, so
Oh.
I paint every day. So
Mm.
it's part of my practice. Like I do like one painting before work every day. So like I give myself an hour and I do an hour painting every day.
Wow.
And the majority of my work is those because I do them every day. So I have like tons of them. They're like little 9 by
Yeah.
12. You know, I tried wood for a while. I didn't love it because it took forever to build a strong enough surface to actually, it just like felt like it was just drinking paint. Just like,
Oh,
like, oh
yeah.
my gosh, like I can't afford that much paint. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love gesso, because
Mm.
you can build on top real quick with gesso and paint. Um, and I love to scrape. Like I'm
Yeah.
really I like to scrape. I like to swipe. I like to,
I love the scraping in your work, honestly. I was like,
guys. Yeah,
"Oh, that's awesome." I love texture, you know?
I
Like,
do.
I don't know what it is about texture, but I love seeing that, you know? And color and it looks like too, like you have very sort of free flowing line too in
Right.
your.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of those things where like we were talking about earlier where people are like, leaning into yourself. So there are a lot of people who are like, I wish I could work as loose as you work. Like I'm pretty loose.
Yeah.
I just have impulse control problems. So my work my work resembles my own personality. We're very controlled and very like methodical. And that's beautiful too. That's the thing. It's like I do that because that's me. Like,
Mm.
and I'm gonna build and scrape and then rebuild and scrape again and rebuild and scrape again.
That's
That's what I'm
awesome.
gonna do. I'm just gonna keep messing with it. Like,
I'm sure doing that too, that you come across a lot of just sporadic realizations as you're doing that.
yeah.
You're like, oh, that was awesome.
You're like, oh, yeah. And sometimes it sucks though when you're not methodical because you're like, I don't know
How to
how
do
I
that
did
again?
that. Yeah, like dang it. So that's where you get to start all over. You're like, okay, well, I'm gonna chase that again. And so then
Yeah.
you go down a whole other rabbit hole. You're like, well, there I go. Off in another direction. Trying to
Oh,
figure
it's
out one
awesome.
thing I just did and I have no idea how that happened. Like,
Yeah. You know what you should do? Well, I'm not saying you should do this all the time. This would be a mess, but like recording yourself, like recording it. And so
yeah,
that you could be like, oh, I really did good on that. Let me go back and see what I did.
yeah, how did I get
In
there?
what order?
How did I do
And what
that?
did I put on there?
No
And
idea.
how did I scrape it?
Yeah, what was the order? I don't know. I know.
That sounds a little bit more methodical too, like to have like to video yourself doing that.
Right. I probably should.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you have any particular artists that you just are really inspired by?
My first art love was Chagall. I love Marc Chagall.
Yeah.
I love, I don't know, the immediacy, the like dreamlike. Like this
Mm.
is a very like deep, like the colors, the emotions, like his emotions just really come through in his work. Um, I love Van Gogh. I love living artists right now. I love Cicely Brown. I love Martin Campos, Alex Kanevsky, and then some of my friends, Elisa Beck. I love her palette knife work. Alana Hagler, great.
Mm.
And she's like high realism, like totally different style than me, and methodical and mature. Like she is all the things I am not.
Yeah.
Love her work. But I love her work. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, just because it's not what I do, like I'm open to all kinds of styles because you can learn something from everybody. You know,
Sure.
open to high realism. I can't do high realism because I don't have that kind of patience. And
Yeah.
I don't care enough about the realism. I think that, for me it's all about like my emotions and my heart and like what I'm trying to feel
Mm.
into a painting. Like I want my feelings into a canvas.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just me. When
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that. I don't even know if that's what I'm trying to do. It's just what happens. I don't know. I think we've already discussed it. I don't really know
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do. So I have no idea.
No, I think you're on a path for sure.
I am on a path. I
Yeah.
really try really hard not to put too much on myself for that path. I'm just kind of
Mm.
let myself go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably really smart too, because makes forces you in a way to just let go of all of that so that you aren't stumped by any of these other like shoulds, I
Right.
should be like this, I should do that, I should. So you
Right.
let it go, then you can just make art and go with it, and that is what works for you, and that's how it comes about. So
Right.
that is your path.
That's my path. Yeah. And I feel like I put a lot more emphasis on like knowing my heart and
Mm.
what's in my heart. And then the art comes out however it comes out. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to communicate things from my soul that I would like to say to the world and that I would like to say back to myself. Like I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine not long ago. And I was like, this is what I've been trying to say in my art.
Yeah.
And I was like, and she's like, because I struggle with a lot of self-esteem issues and stuff like that. She's like, maybe you're trying to say that to yourself too. Like, so
Mm.
I'm trying to communicate love and acceptance, especially for women and women's bodies. I
Yeah.
try to really portray like real women's bodies, like, and not in a, I mean, yeah, of course I'm lesbian, so I guess I like women's bodies too, but I am trying to communicate the lovability, the humanity in that unconditional acceptance, I guess. Just
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's
that's what
really
I
great.
want women to see. I want women to see themselves as strong and beautiful and
Mm.
autonomous. Like you belong to yourself. Your body is yours. And
Yeah.
you get to choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Choose
And
how
what a
it's
wonderful time to kind of express that kind of thing. Because I
yeah.
feel like that's such a powerful message right now in our world, right?
Right. Because the world keeps trying, like it feels like there's this real strong push against people trying to be themselves. Like
Mm.
we don't like there's, the thing that's happening with the drag queens in Tennessee, the thing that's happened with the
Mm.
abortion laws and all that stuff. Like I'm aware of that stuff and I do follow that stuff. I don't try to
Yeah.
make art specifically political,
Mm.
but to me, those aren't political issues. Those are human issues. Like let people live free, let people love themselves, stop
Sure.
shaming people for the way they're made and the way that they want to express themselves. Like to me, it's about freedom. Like let people be free.
Yeah. Yeah.
You will
Absolutely.
find people will help each other, save each other, encourage each other, and love each other when they are free.
That is so true. I could see how that makes sense to me, that you would be, you know, trying to express yourself, but also like sending a message and receiving the message at the same time.
Right. It's like, art is a dialogue. And sometimes you're talking to yourself too, and
Absolutely.
and to
Yeah.
other people. I feel like the more specific you can get with yourself, the more universal your work is going to become. Like the more you know yourself, the more you'll relate to more people. Um,
Sure. Do you ever look back over your work over the years and see your own personal, not your art's growth or your art's changing, but yourself? When you're looking at the art, you're thinking, "Oh, I remember when I was in that time."
yeah, yeah. I tell people all the time that my art knew I was gay a good 10 years before I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
My art knew how gay I was for way longer than I did. It figured it out way before me. So my art is always figuring things out before I figure it out personally.
Oh, how awesome is that? That's amazing.
Yeah. So there's this, and I don't know, so there's this story. We were living in San Antonio at the time, and I was doing First Fridays there, and I had
Yeah.
done this painting, and I grew up in a really religious background, and so I'd done this painting. It was of two women, um, and this group of lesbians came up to buy my painting, and they were asked me to explain it, and so I explained it from what I thought I was doing, and it
Yeah.
was very like religious subtext for what I thought I was doing, and they were all looking at each other. They were like, "Okay," and it was literally like there was a woman who was like kind of like on like in flames and fire on one side, and then a woman in water on the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, it was super gay. Like it was a super gay painting, and this group of lesbians purchased it. Like this couple, they're like, well, okay, well, if that's the explanation, I guess we can like put that in our living room instead of a bedroom. I was like,
Oh, that's
and they were
so
just literally, they asked me, they're like, have you ever like been with a woman before? I was like, no. Like, I was like, because I was super religious, I was married, 2 kids. Like, I was like, I was kind of like taken aback by their question. And that was like, I don't know, that was probably like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny you say that because it's kind of like your art can be a little bit of a like a journal through your
Yeah.
life. And if you're not aware of what you're making and then other people are,
Yeah.
that's very vulnerable.
It is. It
You're
is.
like,
Like,
oh.
yeah, it's like I'm giving like, yeah. And people who know me really well, they'll like watch my art. So I've had friends be like, "Are you okay?" Because they'll see what I made. They're like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "Well, you're painting today." It's like, "Oh, well, maybe I was sad." Like, or maybe, and sometimes it's not my emotions, that I'm processing that day. It could be because I read something like we were talking about in the news, or I heard a story from a friend that broke my heart. And so like
Yeah.
that's kind of playing in my head while I'm making something, and it's coming out because it's like the
Yeah.
feelings I've been feeling. And they may not be mine. Sometimes they're mine, sometimes they're from somewhere else. Um,
Sure, sure. Something that touched you that you're
something
like,
that really
okay,
is heavy on my heart. Yeah.
that's really going on through you're processing it in your head and you're like, oh, making things at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Do you have like any favorite art books or art supplies that you would recommend to people?
Yes. First of all, I love Art and Fear. That's a great book.
Yeah.
I love Steal Like an Artist. That's a great book.
Yeah.
Um, and then I love Bird by Bird, which is actually a book about writing and big
Oh,
magic. So I've learned so much of my art practice from authors who write about writing because they have a very disciplined approach to what they do.
yeah.
And I learned a lot of the discipline about how to like show up every day for my work, even when I
Mm,
don't have a big idea, just show up to do something every
yeah.
day. I got from authors because they're so good at describing what it's like. And it feels
Mm,
a whole like a lot what it's like to show up every day and sometimes have a really crappy day and make a really crappy painting and be like,
Yeah.
good, like not so happy with what happened there. And like, I'm really religious about posting my work all the time. And it's not like oh, look how good I am. And it's more like, this is how bad this can get. Like, this is a struggle. Like some
I
days
do that too.
I posted, I'm like, this is the honesty. Like I'm like more interested in posting the reality of what it's like to work every day. Cause some days it didn't go so well. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm not, when I post a daily piece, I'm not always showing off. Sometimes I'm like, well,
Yeah.
happened today. Sorry. Like, but I learned something. That's the thing. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter if it was a good day or a bad day, because you always learned something and you always did
Sure.
something.
Yeah. I think it's important to show other artists too. And to like in my posts when that happens, I'm like, I don't really like what's got happening in this,
Right. Yeah, it's
I
okay to
feel
be
like
like
this
that.
looks weird. I don't know why I did it that way, but this is what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about the honesty of like, you know what? This is not all, you know, n- I
Like
mean,
perfection
yeah,
every
nothing.
time.
Yeah, no. Sometimes it went really bad and I draw every morning. So I draw every morning. I do a figure drawing every morning. Sometimes they turn out real crap. I'm tired or I don't care and I don't want to finish it. I'm bored.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like, I didn't have enough coffee. I didn't get enough sleep last night. Sometimes they don't turn out great. Like, um, but I post them because
Yeah.
I want people to see that like this whole process of being an artist is like it's a whole everyday kind of thing, even when it's a bad day. It's
Yeah. I think too, like a lot of people, they give up when they have those bad days.
right.
I can't imagine how many people have had like a period of time like that maybe they really loved making art and then they just kept having bad days and then they were just like, I just need to stop doing this. And they never get past it. And part of the reason is because they think that other people, I think, don't have those days.
Right. And there's some artists who only post their best work, which is a choice
Yeah,
too. And that's not a bad choice, probably.
sure.
I may be further down the road as far as my career goes if I just posted the nice work, but I don't. I post all the work. So some
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
work is not great. And I know that. Like, I'm not sitting back here thinking, look at this awesome piece. Sometimes I'm like, eek. Well, there we go. There we go for today. Like,
Have you ever posted something that was really you didn't like it, but you revisited it later on and showed how you like solved a problem or changed it or anything like that?
yeah, sometimes here's one of the kickers. So sometimes you'll post something and you did it like in 10 minutes. So there was this one paint, I did it in like 10 minutes
Yeah.
and I was like just like pop, 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 pop. And it
Yeah.
was like by and large one of my most liked and most successful pieces. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, are you kidding me? Like,
That's awesome.
and then there's like a piece where you feel like you've planned it and you've like done all this work on it and you feel like it's so complex and so like like you put so much effort into this piece and people are like, eh. And then you like
Yeah.
throw it to the side and everybody's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like like
Oh,
that it's that moment where you're like, man, like that's the kind of thing that keeps teaching me just like go with it. Just go with it. Like, cause that was 10 minutes and I just like boop, 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 pop, like
yeah.
boop, 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 pop, like, cause I was just like, I was just, screwing around.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
wasn't being serious. I was just playing around. I don't know. To me, that's the fun of the whole thing. Like, you don't know. You don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Just gotta keep going
You're
on.
just like throwing paint on a canvas and seeing what sticks with other people too, like you're just like putting
Yeah.
it out there.
And you
That's
cannot put weight on, and you really can't put weight on the likes and the not likes, because
oh,
if you do,
absolutely.
you stop growing because you might be struggling through a process of something you're trying to learn and it doesn't look very good because you're struggling through a new technique or a new approach to something that you haven't really been doing it that way, and you're trying to do something a different way. So it's not going to look great. And if you like let the fact that only 5 people liked it affect what you're going to do next, you're not going to follow that thing through to something magical. Like, you got to push through the hard to get to magic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think too, when you bring up the likes thing, like, I don't know how many times I've come across an artist that I know they're making a living from their art. I know that they're very successful within the art world, and then they have an Instagram and there's like nothing going on there, or Facebook and there's nobody's liking or commenting or doing the things. It just doesn't show like how well you're doing. It's not
Yes.
a precise, reading of what's good and what's bad necessarily.
Right.
It's kind of like you have to try different things. Like, do you ever do markets or anything like that?
Yeah, I used to do more of those when I was younger. The older
Yeah.
I get, the tireder I get, and that setup, like, man, I respect deeply the people who do that, like, because I'm too tired to set that up and tear that down.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I can't do that anymore. Like, I'm pushing 50. Like, I'm tired. I'm a breast cancer survivor, and like, I'm tired. So
Yeah.
I do what I can do. And so if I have it in me, I might do one here and there, but like, not very often. But and off, I sell I sell pretty well off of like Instagram. Like, somebody will just see something and contact me. And I started an Etsy. It hasn't sold a lot yet, but like, I'm hoping that because people will always ask me like, where can I see your work for sale? Because I just post, and I don't do a whole lot of, oh, this is for sale and price and stuff. I don't do a lot of that. And so I did Etsy just so it's like, well, there's a spot if you want to go look and buy something.
Absolutely.
Because I can't keep up. I make too much work and too much crappy work to really sell all of it. So,
One day somebody's going to find all of your crappy paintings and they're going to be like, this is all the beautiful work that she had hidden in her attic. And isn't it amazing?
right. Yeah. 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 If I die and get famous, that's going to happen. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. And I really enjoyed it. I think you had a lot of wonderful points for just all of us, young and old, to kind of think about, and that you point them out to people and it's like they can relate and they know. I think about that way too,
Right. Yeah. Just, it's all about the love, man. Just love what you do and love learning it, love learning about other ways of doing it. Like, it's about openness and love and discipline, like pursuit, like just show up every day, just a little bit, even if you don't have a lot of time. Like,
some of those 10-minute things.
Sometimes, yeah. Some people are like, well, I never have time, because they're looking at setting aside 8 hours or 6 hours to do something.
Yeah.
I give it an hour, give it 20 minutes, just something small. You don't always have to make a big painting. You can do something little, do a little drawing, do a little doodle, do something just to like keep those juices flowing. Like, that's what it does for me. It just keeps it active. Like, it's always active inside of me, just a little something every day. And so I've always got the creative synapses firing, even if I'm not able to make it to a big long painting for that day or that weekend or whatever. Just keep it going.
Yeah, like keeping up the habits.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned you have an Etsy and your Instagram, which I'm going to have below on these videos and in everything.
Right. So I'm on TikTok. It's all Art by DaNeal. So Art by DaNeal on Instagram, Art by DaNeal on Etsy, Art by DaNeal on TikTok. So,
well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, DaNeal. You have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Awesome.
Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Art Talk with April. For more information on this episode, join the Facebook group, The Art Lounge. Please subscribe and share. See you next Tuesday. Hope you have a great week.